Hey everyone. So this is probably actually going to be the last introduction video of the semester. There'll be more videos, obviously, like talking about your homework and concepts and review and all that stuff. But this is really our last concept that I'm going to talk to you about for 102, and it's related to form, but it's this way of thinking about form in an even broader, more macro. Like the word I've used is like telescoped out, like where you zoom out even further and consider larger implications of form. And the one that we're going to look at specifically is this idea called a composite ternary. So I'm going to explain this to you abstractly here, and then we'll look at a graph of it, and then we're going to listen. I think after listening, it'll be really clear, or more clear at least, as to how this works, because these are things you see quite a bit and have played in your music and band and orchestra and all that kind of stuff. So a composite ternary is a form that has forms inside of it. So it's kind of like the Russian nested dolls, right? Kind of version of forms, right? There's inside of this ternary form, there are more forms. And specifically for this one, inside of this large ternary, there are binaries. And those binaries are often in contrasting keys. And if you take them together, so you look at these like binary and a binary like that. If you take them separately, this is like a rounded binary and that's a sectional binary or simple binary or whatever. If you look at them all together, though, they create another form. And that is the composite form, the larger scale form. Again, I think this is really fun. It's a really interesting, satisfying way to look at form, at least for me, because you can look at down here, you're looking at the phrases, and then you're looking at the sort of binary level, like period structure. And then you have binary level period structure over here and phrases, and even smaller, you're looking at the chords. But if you keep going up, you keep seeing patterns. More and more patterns become clearer and clearer the further you actually step away from the music. And then what is really kind of amazing about Western music in like the harmonic, sort of structural sense, is that at the harmony level down here in the phrases, and at this level, and at this level, you see the same patterns. You'll see the idea of a phrase having a statement and a contrast, the antecedent and the consequent. Well, the period will also have an antecedent and consequent. And then this level also creates an antecedent and consequent. It's really fascinating that we've gravitated towards these paradigms at almost every level of understanding our music. It's kind of cool. Again, I really enjoy thinking of this holistic macro sense with music. So if you enjoy that too, great. If not, I apologize. But it's just what we're doing right now. So composite ternary. You guys have played these and heard these. The easiest and probably most famous example of it is the idea of a minuet and trio. Minuet and trio, you may also have seen scherzos instead of the trio idea, this idea that you have like a scherzo in a symphony. Beethoven, people like that were also using scherzos. But if you look at sort of like classicism and backwards, they have this sort of preponderance of minuet and trios in string quartets and symphonies. They become a movement and a stylistic kind of formal entity. Okay, so a minuet and trio is a composite ternary. How it works is, this is our form right here, and this is a sort of like boilerplate minuet and trio. I just made up all of these numbers, so don't worry about what they are. But here you have your formal level, right? You have an A, and that's in this one was 11 bars, and then there is a B, and then an A prime. So this here, right, is a rounded binary. And hopefully that is clear to you at this point. If not, just make sure you go back and look at the other videos where I talk about binaries and simple binaries, with this rounded versus ternary. But that is a rounded binary. And by itself, up to this point, I guess, I may have given you this as homework assignment and said, what's that form? And you'd say rounded binary. And I'd say, great. However, that's not the whole piece, right? It's a minuet and a trio, and this is just the first section that's a minuet. Well, there's another section in minuet and trios, and that section is delineated by a double bar. It's also delineated by a key change. And this is where things maybe, if you're like, especially in the band tradition, if you're a wind or brass percussion instrumentalist, you've seen this pattern before in marches, right? Where there's these adding of a flat, right, at a trio section in a march. It's the same thing, right? You're seeing this form within a form that, if you step back, looks like a larger scale form, right? So we usually add a sharp or add a flat, add a key change in a trio, and then you get a new section. And this is where now you're going to start seeing more and more letters. So we've had A and B and A prime, and then we get C. You just keep going with the letters. You have your C section, and the phrases keep going. There's D, and E, and then there's the D section, the large scale D, and C prime. So this section by itself is also a rounded binary, right? Cool. So this is two rounded binaries put together into one piece. However, there's in a minuet and trio, and we'll look at these, and also this is the same in a march, right? You have a DC, and it usually says DC al fine, which means you go back to the top. And if you do that, you create a ternary, right? You have the A section, this huge A section, right? That is actually 3 sections. It's a rounded binary, but we hear it as one section delineated by a double bar. And then we get a big B section that within it has these 3 sections. And then there's a DC and a return all the way back to the A, which creates an A, right? B, A. That's a composite ternary. It's this huge, large-scale macro ABA form. Super cool. I think they're really interesting. Like I said, this graph is kind of abstract, so I'm going to play one for you. We'll listen to the whole piece. This is the Minuet from Eine kleine Nachtmusik. So I'm sure you know the first movement of Eine kleine Nachtmusik, the bum, ba bum, ba ba da ba ba bum, like that Mozart. This is an interior movement. It's not played as much, but still, yeah, pretty good. As Mozart goes, right? I'll play it for you just all the way through. What I want you to do is, as we're listening, just watch for those large scale things, right? Watch for this form emerging. And I'll try to like put in little marks and things as we're going along, and I might shout something out. But just follow along and think about this. It's 2 different pieces almost put together, and then when heard as a whole, you get that form. Repeat. This was your A. This is B. Oh, there's a rounding, right? This is the repeat. This was the repeat, so that was A, B, A prime. That's a rounded binary. This is different, right? C. Oh, D. Right? Different music. Oh, there's C again. Repeat. So this section, right, was, this section was C, D, C prime. It was a rounded binary. Then, da capo. The tradition is to not take the repeats on the return. And that's it, right? So that repeat at the end made this A be A prime, right? Break, C, D, C prime, repeat. Right now, when you do the repeat, you hear this as A, B, and the repeat as A. And it's a ternary. Even though the subsections, each one of those large scale things, and again, each one of these things that you would have been doing for homework, right? Like that would have been your, hey, analyze this rounded binary thing. That's actually only part of the story. It's part of the form of this thing we call a composite ternary. Okay. This is like the largest macro thinking we're going to do in this class. When you get into 201, what you're going to start to see is that you spend a lot of time at this level, like thinking about big, like formal implications, large scale form. Thinking about 7 or 8 minutes of music at a time as a section, and then you call that A, and then you go into it and you see all these different periods, A, B, C, D, and then within all of those, you have all of these phrases, because music is complicated, right? Music is not only interesting at this level, it's interesting at this level, and it's interesting at this level. And you need to be able to have the language to speak eloquently and effectively, and sort of intelligently about that. And that's what we're working on now. So if you have questions about this as a concept, let me know. You're going to analyze a few of them, right, on your homework as we go throughout the rest of the semester here. And really what I'm concerned about is that you sort of get the hierarchical logic flow, right? We've been spending time here, and then we're here, and this is a thing, right, as a rounded binary, but it's also understood at this larger level. So just let me know if you have questions. Again, happy to chat about any of this stuff, walk you through more of them. If you need help, just reach out.